The world of Veyron was quiet now, but the silence was not peaceful. It was heavy, like a stone pressing against every heart. The war had ended years ago, but the scars remained on the land and in the people. Whole villages had been burned, cities shattered, and families broken apart. Among those broken families was Kaelor's. Kaelor was once a proud elder of his clan, a man who guided others with wisdom and strength. His horns, long and curved with age, marked him as respected. His hands, once steady, now trembled when he lit the family shrine at dusk. Every night he placed a flame in honor of his daughter, Lyra. Every night he whispered the same words. "May your spirit find peace, my child." Lyra had vanished during the Dominion raids. The invaders were merciless, capturing young and strong Veyron to serve as slaves in their camps. Kaelor searched for her after the battle, but found nothing. No body, no trace, no voice calling back. The council declared her dead. The elders spoke soft words of comfort, but Kaelor's heart had cracked that day and never healed. Now, when the sun dipped low, Kaelor sat before the shrine in his small stone home. The flickering light touched the carvings of his ancestors, but it was not their faces he saw, it was hers. He remembered her laughter echoing through the halls, her bright eyes shining when she was young. He remembered the last day he saw her, running to join the defense lines, too brave and too stubborn for her own safety. And he remembered how the sky filled with fire when the Dominion ships descended. Since that day, Kaelor carried two feelings inside him: grief and bitterness. Grief for the child he had lost and bitterness toward those he blamed. The Dominion had taken her, yes, but he also blamed the humans. They had come into the war late, shouting promises of strength and victory. But where were they when Lyra was taken? Where were they when Veyron burned? To Kaelor, humans were reckless creatures who thought they could lead, but only left ashes behind. Whenever the council spoke of humans as allies, Kaelor stayed silent, his jaw tight. He had no place in his heart for their kind. His heart had only one place left, and it was filled with sorrow for his daughter. Life on Veyron after the war was not easy. The Dominion had been driven back, but rebuilding was slow. The fields grew again, though thin and weak. The great towers of the capital city still lay in ruins. In the villages, people learned to live with less. Kaelor's people were strong, but even strength could not heal the emptiness of loss. Kaelor spent his days tending to the younger ones who had survived. He taught them the old songs, the old ways of planting, the discipline of patience. They respected him, but they also feared the sadness in his eyes. Children whispered that Kaelor lived half in this world and half in the spirit world, because his heart was still with the daughter he mourned. Each evening, after his work, Kaelor walked to the ridge overlooking the valley. From there he could see the scars of war, blackened soil, wreckage of ships, broken metal bones of Dominion machines. He often stood there for hours, staring, wondering if his daughter's final moments had been somewhere out there. Sometimes he imagined he heard her voice in the wind. Sometimes he closed his eyes and let the memory hurt him all over again, because pain was all he had left of her. The villagers often tried to bring him comfort. Old friends brought food, younger ones asked him to share stories, neighbors invited him to gatherings. But Kaelor declined. His heart was too heavy for laughter, his soul too tired for joy. When he did speak, his words carried weight but also bitterness. "Do not trust the humans," he warned. "They speak of honor but leave others to pay the price. They fight like fire, burning bright but burning all in their path." Some agreed with him, for not all Veyron trusted humanity. Others argued that without humans, the Dominion might never have been stopped. But Kaelor did not join their debates. To him, arguments could not bring back his daughter. No speech could fill the empty seat in his home. One night, as Kaelor prepared the shrine, his friend Talon, a fellow elder, visited. Talon was younger, with sharper horns and quicker steps, and he carried the energy of one who still believed in the future. "You light the flame again," Talon said softly, watching Kaelor's hands tremble as he set the fire. "I will light it every night until my last breath," Kaelor answered. "There are whispers in the market," Talon continued carefully. "Some say survivors were seen in the outer colonies, freed captives. Perhaps." Kaelor shook his head, cutting him off. "Do not bring false hope here. She is gone. I buried her in my heart years ago." "But Kaelor," Talon pressed, "if there is even a chance to break me again?" Kaelor's voice rose sharp with pain. I will not chase shadows. I will not look for ghosts. Talon sighed, knowing there was no changing him. Yet in his eyes there was pity, not anger. He touched Kalor's shoulder and said, "Sometimes the stars return what was taken. Sometimes what we think lost is only waiting." Then he left, leaving Kalor alone with the flame. That night, Kalor sat long before the shrine. His mind warred against itself. One part whispered, "What if she still lives?" The other part screamed, "Do not believe it. You will break again!" He pressed his hands against his eyes until tears slipped through his fingers. His body shook with silent sobs. He had not wept openly in years, but now the whispers of survivors tore open wounds he had tried to seal. Kalor lifted his head and looked at the flame. "Lyra," he whispered, "if you still live, forgive me. Forgive me for letting you go that day. Forgive me for not finding you. Forgive me for giving up." The flame flickered, and in that moment it almost seemed to dance like her laughter once had. Kalor closed his eyes, clinging to the memory as if it could keep her close. The following days, Kalor carried on as usual. He walked among the villagers, taught the young, and stared at the valley scars, but his heart felt more restless than before. The whispers of survivors followed him like shadows. He tried to silence them, yet they grew louder. Sometimes he caught himself scanning the faces of strangers in the market, as if expecting to see her. Sometimes at night, he dreamed of her voice calling his name, and he woke with tears on his cheeks. Still, he told no one, not even Talon. Kalor chose to hold his silence, for he feared hope more than grief. Grief was a cage he had learned to live in. Hope was a blade that could cut him open once more. And so, Kalor mourned as he always had. Alone. Bitter. With only the flame at the shrine to witness his pain. What he did not know was that his life was about to change. The flame he lit each night would soon be joined by something far brighter. The daughter he thought lost was not a ghost. She was walking back into his world, and she was not alone. The sun rose over Veyrun, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. The world was calm on the surface, but beneath that calm, rumors spread like sparks across dry grass. Survivors of Dominion captivity had been spotted in distant colonies, and whispers of hope reached the ears of those who had long suffered loss. Kalor, however, had learned to ignore such whispers. Years of grief had taught him that hope could be dangerous. It could tear you open only to leave you bleeding again. Even so, the rumors persisted. Merchants returning from the outer world spoke in hushed tones about freed captives, Veyrunans who had survived years of Dominion labor camps. Some claimed that humans had led daring raids into Dominion territory, rescuing the prisoners. Kalor's ears burned whenever he overheard these stories, but he turned away, refusing to listen. The thought of his daughter being alive both thrilled and terrified him. If she were alive, she might not even recognize him. She might be changed, hardened by years of suffering. The village buzzed with cautious curiosity. Children whispered to each other about escaped captives, and adults argued quietly in the streets. Kalor stayed within his stone home, tending to the shrine with meticulous care. The flame burned steadily, as if waiting for something to return. Some nights he caught himself staring at the horizon, imagining shadows moving across the valley. But every time he told himself it was just the wind. One afternoon, Talon approached him again. The elder's steps were careful, measured as if approaching a wild animal. "Kalor," Talon began softly, "I heard new reports today. From traders coming from the outer colonies. They say the humans have freed more captives. Some even report Veyrunans among them." Kalor's hands froze over the stones he was arranging. "And why would I care?" he asked, though his voice betrayed him with a slight tremble. "Because one of them might be someone we lost," Talon said carefully. His eyes searched Kalor's, looking for any sign of hope. "I know it is dangerous to imagine, but perhaps—" Kalor cut him off. "Perhaps nothing. Perhaps we should leave the past buried where it belongs." He turned away, walking toward the shrine. The flame reflected in his eyes, casting a warm glow over the sadness etched into his face. Talon stayed silent, knowing words would not reach him. Years of grief had built walls around Kalor's heart, and hope could not scale those walls easily. Still, Talon left a small gift, a letter from traders, a message from someone who claimed to have seen Lyra's escape. Kalor tossed it into the fire without reading. Days passed slowly. The villagers noticed Kalor's restlessness. He walked the same paths, spoke only when necessary, and avoided the marketplace where whispers of survivors swirled. Yet deep inside something refused to die. A small ember of hope glowed quietly, buried. The village woke to an unusual stir that morning. The air felt electric, as if it carried whispers of change. Farmers paused their work. Children ran in circles shouting, and traders glanced nervously toward the outer gates. Something was coming, and the village could feel it before anyone saw it. Kaylor stood at his window, eyes narrowed, scanning the road that led from the outer colonies. The wind brought faint sounds of movement, horses, the clatter of wheels, and something unfamiliar. Human voices. His stomach twisted. Humans had been rare in Veyruun since the war, and most elders like him distrusted them. But he could not ignore the feeling pressing against his chest. Something told him this day would change everything. The first figure appeared at the crest of the hill. Kaylor squinted through the morning haze. The silhouette was human, taller than any Veyruunan, with broad shoulders and confident steps. Behind the human, figures moved with a steady rhythm, smaller, leaner, and unmistakably Veyruunan. One of them, Kaylor's heart stopped at the sight, moved with a familiar grace. Lyra. She was alive. Every detail, from the curve of her shoulders to the way her hair fell over her face, matched his memories. She was thinner, her clothes rough and worn, her skin marked by the hardships of years in captivity. Yet her eyes, the same bright, sharp eyes that had once sparkled with mischief, looked straight at the village, scanning for home. Kaylor felt the flame of hope ignite in his chest, but it burned alongside terror. He ran from his home without thought, his legs carrying him down the ridge faster than they had carried him in years. His horns glinted in the morning light, shaking with the force of his emotion. The villagers turned as he passed, whispers spreading faster than wind. "Is it true?" a child asked, tugging at his cloak. Kaylor did not answer. His focus was only on her. Every step she took toward the village was a step toward him, toward the possibility he had dared not dream of. The human leading the group paused at the village entrance. His presence was commanding but calm. He was not like the reckless humans Kaylor remembered from the war. This one moved with precision, each step purposeful, each gesture measured. Kaylor's eyes narrowed as he watched him. He wanted to distrust him, to turn away, but something in the human's stance, the way he protected the Veyruunans around him, stirred a strange respect in Kaylor's heart. Then Lyra's eyes met Kaylor's. She froze for a moment, as if recognizing him in the distance. The line of years melted away in that instant. Kaylor ran faster, tears blinding him. Lyra's lips trembled, and she broke into a small, cautious smile. Her arms opened instinctively, and Kaylor's own arms reached for her, closing around the daughter he thought he would never hold again. The villagers watched in silence, some in awe, others in disbelief. Humans and Veyruunans together were rare enough. But this scene, an elder embracing a daughter thought dead, stilled everyone's breath. Kaylor held her tightly, as if to make sure she was real. "Lyra, my child, you're alive," he whispered, voice cracking. She pressed her face against his chest, her own tears wetting his shoulder. For a moment the world faded. There was no war, no dominion, no fear, only the reunion of father and daughter. I thought I'd never see you again," Kaylor said. "You were gone? All these years." His voice trailed off, heavy with memories of empty nights and endless sorrow. "I survived, Father," Lyra said softly, "because someone helped me. A human. He risked everything to save us." She gestured toward the man standing behind her. "This is Commander Elias Ward. He brought me home." Kaylor looked at Elias with suspicion. Humans had always seemed reckless, unpredictable, even dangerous. Yet in Elias's calm gaze, Kaylor saw honesty, courage, and a quiet strength. Still, his trust did not come easily. "Why should I believe you?" he asked, voice low and tense. "Humans, they fight like fire. They burn through everything and leave ashes behind." Elias stepped forward, keeping his hands open to show he meant no harm. "I am not here to fight," he said plainly. "I am here to return what was taken. Your daughter was held captive by the Dominion. I could not leave her there. I swore I would see her home." Kaylor's eyes narrowed. The words rang true, but it was impossible to trust so easily. He looked at Lyra, who nodded slightly, confirming the story. Her eyes were alive with certainty. His daughter was here, alive, and Elias had saved her. The villagers slowly gathered around, whispers spreading like wildfire. Some murmured approval, others caution. A few children ran to Lyra, embracing her in ways only childhood friends could. The older Veyrunans remained wary, eyes flicking between the human and the girl. They had heard stories, humans saving others during the war, but never had one come so close, and never had it affected someone they knew. Kaelor released Lyra slightly, holding her by the shoulders to examine her. "You have suffered," he said quietly. "Tell me, how did you survive?" Lyra swallowed hard. "It was hard," she admitted. "But there were others, Veyrunans, who stayed together, and then he came, Elias. He fought the Dominion, risked his life over and over just to free us. I thought I would never leave the camps. I thought—" Her voice broke, and Kaelor felt the sting of her pain as if it were his own. "You survived," he said, pressing his forehead to hers. "That is all that matters." He turned slightly, still holding her, and looked at Elias. "And this human? You say he risked his life for my child?" Elias nodded calmly. "Yes, many lives were at stake, but your daughter, she was not to be left behind." Kaelor's mind raced. Everything he had believed about humans, about their recklessness and danger, was being challenged by the man before him. The flame of distrust still lingered, but now it was mixed with something else: respect, gratitude, and a cautious curiosity. Lyra led Kaelor and Elias toward the center of the village. Villagers stared openly now, some approaching to offer aid or welcome. Lyra explained more of her journey: the long marches through Dominion territory, the nights hiding in shadows, the people she helped along the way. Each story painted Elias as a man of bravery and honor, not the careless warrior Kaelor had imagined humans to be. Kaelor listened quietly, absorbing the details. Every word Lyra spoke confirmed that hope, fragile as it was, could indeed become reality. Yet the elder in him could not fully let go of his fear. He still worried for his daughter, for the village, and for the strange human who had entered their lives. Still, Kaelor could not deny one thing. The daughter he thought he had lost was standing before him alive, speaking his name. And the human who had saved her had earned a place in his sight, even if his heart had not yet fully accepted it. That evening, Kaelor sat outside with Lyra and Elias, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The flame of the family shrine flickered beside them, its light dancing on the walls of his home. For the first time in years, Kaelor felt a cautious sense of peace. Lyra spoke softly of her hopes for rebuilding, for healing, for the future. Elias listened and offered guidance, showing care and respect in ways Kaelor could not ignore. For a moment, Kaelor allowed himself to imagine a life where grief was no longer the center of his days. Perhaps humans could be allies, perhaps the past could be healed, and perhaps the world of Veyrun could grow stronger through unity. Yet he did not speak these thoughts aloud. Instead, he sat quietly, letting the presence of his daughter and her savior speak for itself. The reunion was more powerful than words. The fire in the shrine, the wind over the valley, and the warmth of Lyra's hand in his own told him everything he needed to know. Somewhere deep inside, Kaelor knew the story was far from over. There would be challenges, dangers, and battles yet to come. But for now, he allowed himself one gift: the sight of his daughter alive, standing before him, and the knowledge that humans, at least this one, were not just allies of war, but allies of life. As night fell, Kaelor looked at Elias one final time that evening. "I do not know if I can trust all humans," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "But I can see the truth in your eyes. You saved my daughter, that I will not forget." Elias bowed slightly, a gesture of respect that needed no words. "It is my honor," he said simply. And in that moment, Kaelor allowed himself to hope. For the first time in years, the weight in his chest lifted slightly. The fire of grief still burned, but now it shared space with something else: the warmth of reunion, the spark of trust, and the flicker of a future where his daughter was not lost. And perhaps humanity was not the enemy he had believed. The village settled into an unusual rhythm after Lyra's return. There was a mixture of joy, curiosity, and unease in the air. Some villagers still whispered about the humans who had rescued the captives, questioning their motives. Others quietly admired their bravery. Kaelor, however, focused on understanding the man who had brought his daughter home. Commander Elias Ward was no ordinary human. Kaelor had seen countless humans in the past, reckless, loud, and unpredictable. But Elias moved with quiet confidence and careful attention. Kaelor approached Elias the morning after Lyra's return. They stood at the edge of the village where the field stretched into the distance. "I need to understand," Kalor said, voice firm. "You say you freed my daughter and others. Why? What drove you to risk your life for strangers?" Elias looked out over the fields, his expression calm. "Because they were innocent," he said simply. "Because they were in danger. Because leaving them behind was not right." He paused, meeting Kaylee. The calm of the village was shattered in the early hours of the morning. A cold wind swept through the streets, carrying with it the scent of smoke and metal. The horizon glowed with an unnatural red as Dominion ships emerged from the outer colonies, a shadow over the peaceful valley. The villagers awoke with fear in their hearts, some trembling, some silently praying, while others ran to prepare defenses. Kalor's chest tightened as he watched the ships approach. Years of war and loss pressed down on him like a stone. He had already lost his daughter once, and he could not bear the thought of losing her again. He ran to the ridge overlooking the village where Elias and Lyra were already surveying the incoming threat. Elias's expression was calm, but determined. "This is not just an attack," he said. "It's a test. If we stand together, we can survive. But we must act quickly." Kalor's horns glinted in the morning sun, his jaw tight. "We have been preparing for weeks. I hope that is enough." Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder. "Father, you are not alone. We will stand together." Her voice carried the steel of someone who had faced captivity, suffering, and survival. Kalor felt a surge of pride. She was no longer the frightened girl he had mourned. She was a warrior, a leader, and his daughter. The Dominion forces descended in waves, their ships hovering above the valley, dropping troops and machinery. The villagers moved swiftly, following the human strategies Elias had taught them. They set traps, barricaded streets, and positioned defenders at key points. Children and the elderly were guided to safe shelters while the able-bodied prepared for battle. Kalor stood beside Elias, watching the organized chaos unfold. At first, fear threatened to overwhelm him, but seeing the villagers' courage gave him strength. The humans had taught them more than weapons. They had taught them confidence, teamwork, and trust. For the first time, Kalor felt that his people could survive this threat. The Dominion troops struck first at the outer defenses. Explosions rattled the village, sending clouds of dust into the sky. The villagers fired arrows and projectiles, striking with precision. Elias moved among them, directing squads, reinforcing weak points and assisting injured defenders. His presence was steadying, a beacon of leadership amidst the storm. Kalor watched as his daughter moved alongside him, rallying the fighters. Her voice rang out, clear and commanding. "Hold the line! Protect the village! We fight together!" Her courage inspired others. Even those who had doubted the humans now fought with renewed determination. The battle intensified as Dominion soldiers advanced deeper into the village. Their machines crushed walls and burned fields, but the defenders held their ground. Elias demonstrated strategies Kalor had never imagined. Flanking maneuvers, coordinated attacks, and decoys that confused the enemy. The villagers began to move as one, executing complex tactics with surprising skill. Kalor felt a mix of fear and awe. The human was not reckless. Every action was calculated to save lives. His mind began to change. Perhaps humans were not just dangerous outsiders, they could be allies, teachers, and protectors. Elias's courage and precision forced Kalor to reconsider every assumption he had ever held. At one point, a Dominion machine broke through a barricade and threatened the village square. Kalor froze, realizing that without intervention many lives could be lost. But Elias acted instantly. He led a small group of defenders, including Lyra, to confront the threat. They worked together seamlessly, disabling the machine and forcing the soldiers to retreat. Kalor watched, astonished. His daughter, once so vulnerable, now stood firm alongside the human who had saved her. The battle raged for hours. Smoke and fire filled the streets, and the sounds of combat echoed through the valley. Villagers fought with every ounce of strength they had, inspired by Elias and Lyra. Kalor moved among them, giving encouragement and strength where needed. He realized that courage was not just in fighting. It was in standing firm for those you loved, even when fear threatened to overwhelm you. During a lull in the fighting, Kalor noticed a group of young defenders struggling to hold a street. Dominion soldiers were closing in. Without hesitation, he grabbed his spear and charged alongside them. His voice roared above the chaos, "Hold the line! For the village!
For our people.
The defenders steadied, and together they pushed back the attackers. Kaelor felt a thrill he had not known in years, a mix of fear, determination, and pride. He was not just a grieving father anymore. He was a protector, a fighter, and part of a larger force united by trust and courage. As the battle continued, Kaelor saw Elias taking risks that few humans would dare. He saved a group of villagers trapped under rubble, deflected a collapsing beam with sheer strength, and even shielded Kaelor from an incoming attack. Each action reinforced the bond of trust forming between them. Kaelor began to see the human not just as an ally, but as a man who shared the same values: courage, honor, and loyalty. Lyra moved with equal bravery, leading squads and coordinating defenses. She had grown into a leader the village could rally around. Kaelor's chest swelled with pride as he watched her. She was no longer the child he had mourned. She was a force of life, strength, and resilience, and she stood side by side with the human who had risked everything for her. The Dominion troops, realizing they could not break the village defenses quickly, began to retreat. Elias and Lyra led a final counterattack, driving the enemy back toward their ships. The villagers cheered as the last Dominion soldiers fled. The streets were filled with smoke and debris, but the people had survived. Kaelor stood at the ridge once more, surveying the aftermath. He felt exhaustion, relief, and a profound sense of awe. The village had survived because of unity, courage, and trust. Humans and Veyrunans had fought together, learning from each other, protecting each other. The bonds forged in the heat of battle were stronger than any fear or prejudice. He turned to Lyra, who was checking on the wounded and ensuring that everyone was safe. "You have grown," he said quietly, pride evident in his voice. "Stronger than I ever imagined." Lyra looked at him, a small smile on her lips. "I learned from the best," she said softly, glancing at Elias. Kaelor then turned to Elias, who had been assisting villagers with the injured. "You have earned my respect," Kaelor said, voice steady. "You risked your life for my daughter and for our people. That will not be forgotten." Elias nodded, acknowledging the respect. "It was my honor," he said simply. That night the village gathered near the shrine. Fires burned brightly, illuminating the tired but victorious faces of its people. Kaelor stood with Lyra and Elias, feeling a warmth he had not known in years. The battle had tested them all, but it had also shown them the strength that came from unity. Kaelor lit the family shrine's flame, the light flickering in the night. "We survived," he whispered. "Not because we were strong alone, but because we stood together. Humans, Veyrunans, friends, we are stronger united." Lyra rested her head against her father's shoulder, exhaustion and relief mingling in her eyes. Elias stood nearby, surveying the village with quiet vigilance, ready to act if needed. The bond between them had been tested in fire, and it had held. Kaelor realized that he had been given a second chance, not just to see his daughter alive, but to witness the power of trust and unity. Hope was no longer fragile. It was alive, burning as brightly as the flame at the shrine. As the stars appeared above Veyrun, Kaelor allowed himself to finally relax. He had faced loss, grief, and fear, but he had also witnessed courage, loyalty, and the bonds that could unite even the most unlikely allies. He knew that challenges would come again, but for the first time in years he felt prepared. Together they could face anything, and in that moment Kaelor made a silent vow. He would protect this bond, his daughter, and their home, no matter what the future held. The Dominion may strike again, but the village would not fall. Not while humans and Veyrunans stood side by side. For the first time in a long time, Kaelor truly believed in the future. The morning after the battle, the village was quiet, but it carried a new sense of life. Smoke from the Dominion's retreating forces still rose in the distance, but the village itself was intact. Families moved through the streets, cleaning, rebuilding, and tending to wounds. The air felt lighter, as though the weight of fear and grief had been lifted. Kaelor walked through the village, observing the people he had once mourned would be lost. The sight of children laughing while helping to repair walls, elders giving guidance, and villagers working together filled him with a warmth he had not felt in years. And everywhere he looked, Elias and Lyra moved together among them, leading, protecting, teaching, and inspiring. For Kaelor, it was a moment of reflection. He remembered the long nights of despair when he had thought his daughter was gone forever. Now she was alive. She had returned stronger, braver, and wiser, and beside her stood a human, the one who had risked everything to bring her home. Kalor approached Elias and Lyra near the center of the village. Lyra was tending to a wounded villager, carefully wrapping a bandage around the man's arm. Elias was helping clear debris from a collapsed structure, moving with careful strength. Kalor watched them for a moment, thinking about the journey that had brought them here. Elias, Kalor began, his voice quiet but steady. You have done more than I could have imagined. You saved my daughter, my people, and